for being here tonight with us for Science on Screen. This is actually our 5th season of Science on Screen with Salina Art Center, and we are fortunate to fund that through a grant from Coolidge Corner Theater and Sloan Foundation. What Science on Screen attempts to do is pair entertainment, like movies, with scientific discussions about topics that we should all be interested in and paying attention to. This presentation with Rolling Hills Zoo was actually scheduled for April of 2020, and we all know what happened then. And so we are just really, really happy to have it back on track and to welcome this great team from Rolling Hills Zoo, one of our greatest resources here in Salina that we should all be very proud of. So I'm going to now turn things over to Ryan. Thank you for coming out for Science on Screen. And hopefully we will see you on June the 9th when we show the 1954 classic Rear Window by Alfred Hitchcock and talk to St. Louis photographer who's going to tell us how the camera lies and how to make that work in your favor. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I'll let you introduce your team and all the great things you do.
Great. Well, thank you very much. My name's Ryan VanZant. I'm the Executive Director of the Rolling Hills Zoo, and if you've been out to the Rolling Hills Zoo, I'm sure you've seen some of our tallest attractions, the giraffes out there. We're really proud of the work that the Rolling Hills Zoo has done through the years to contribute to giraffe conservation and knowledge. The film we just saw with Dr. Dag, that there was a lot of messages to take away from that. Ones that I'm probably not the most qualified to talk about regarding giraffes or women for that matter. I probably have more similarities with giraffes. We share some features, I guess, but tall Brenda. We're really excited to take part tonight. The profession of working in zoos is really a female-dominated profession right now. There's a lot of really incredible women that I am and have been lucky enough to work with through the years. Two of those are here tonight with me, Brenda Gunder and Brooke Rose, Brenda's in charge of all the animals at the zoo. She is our curator, and Brooke is one of our keepers who takes care of the giraffes. With that, I'm going to turn it over to them.
And I just have a few slides just to kind of discuss a little bit about our animals and then what zoos are doing and kind of how zoos manage giraffes. So this first slide that's behind me is our newest giraffe, Cory. And this is when he was just a few weeks old. He's about 5 months, almost 6 months now.
Speak up a little bit louder.
Yes, I can. No problem. So this little boy here, he was born in December. He is the second calf that we've had most recently. We did have giraffes. We've had giraffes at the zoo since the early 90s. As you know, probably from being around Salina, Rolling Hills Zoo is a fairly new zoo, opening in 1999 in the grand scheme of zoos in general. But it's been many, many years since we'd had a successful calf. This is our second one. We had one about 3 years ago as well. And currently we have his mother, Billy, and another female who we call Aunt Zuri. And so that currently is our 3 giraffes at Rolling Hills Zoo. I'm going to hit the slide here, hopefully.
What happened to the other giraffes? Did they die?
We had a male that passed away at 18 last year.
What was it from?
Age. Yeah.
So they did live a full
18, yes. I think in the film you remember them saying that, mid-20s was kind of average. Actually, mean average age for giraffes in general is around 16, and so he did live past that in the captive world. But yes, they're kind of around the horse age where they can hit around 20. Females tend to live a little bit longer than that, but males generally are passing away at that time. So, yeah, he kind of.
Do you think there's something physical about that, or is it emotional, or?
What do you mean?
Them dying so much earlier than the females, or is
yeah, I don't, maybe size, yeah, I don't know that, yeah. So this next picture just kind of shows, this is actually our male there in the back and the girls when they were a little younger. So this is an older picture, so that is our male BT who passed away last year in the back there. But all the giraffes in accredited zoos, AZA accredited zoos, are managed. You remember in the film they were kind of talking about how to keep genetics, and they were doing artificial insemination up in Canada and so forth. Well, they are managed here by just making sure we're not inbreeding. So we do get recommendations from a regional group that is managed through AZA that lets us know who and who should breed with who. Animals are moved for that reason sometimes. And then it also has to do with what space is available. So we don't just, randomly pick animals and make babies like maybe some other facilities might, but AZA is managed in that way. And so the last 2 babies that we have had were recommendations for breeding. And one other slide here. So I took this off of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation's site. They didn't really talk a lot in the film, just about numbers. But this, and I don't know how well you all can see it from there, but the numbers, like they were mentioning, about 20,000 in the wild. This kind of breaks it down into some of the subspecies that there are: northern, southern, reticulated, and the Maasai giraffe. And those are the recognized species currently. In zoos, they're managed a little differently than that. Maasai are a group of giraffes that are separately bred. And then there are what they kind of call generics, which might be a mix of some of the other subspecies. So reticulateds are in that, or Rothschild, which is a name than Nubians. So some of the subspecies then are kind of managed generally like that. And what we have at the zoo are those what they call the generic breed. And so that managed population, then that's where we get our recommendations for breeding.
What's the difference between subspecies and generic?
The generic just means so in zoos, and it kind of depends on Europe or United States or whatever, locations like that. There's what's called where they separate the species and they want to breed specifics like that, or they're the ones where they lump them into one group of species. So subspecies is just a breakdown. So you have giraffes, and you might have a southern subspecies, still a giraffe, but just regionally how they're located. Maybe a river divides their location, and so they can't breed with each other because there's a river there, or a mountain or something. And so through evolution, they kind of developed different patterns or a different way they eat or something like that. That's kind of how the subspecies then is developed. But our zoo populations, they don't worry about those genetic differences. They have done some studies where they take hair samples and they're learning more about that and kind of looking at, should we be dividing up our animals in our collection to breed them specifically. So that is something that's ongoing. Let's see if I can hit one more here. And then this is a map also from the Giraffe Conservation Foundation that shows the areas of location. And so that might help explain a little bit about why they're named what they are. So I kind of spelled it out a little bigger on this side, but the purple over here, you can see that would be the Maasai population. So there are Maasai giraffes that are managed in AZA zoos. And then northern and southern, and then the reticulated. In zoos, if there are those types of subspecies, those would be managed in more of the generic population is really what it's called. It's just what they call it as having a mix of those. So you can kind of see the locations of how giraffes are spread out. And of course, like in that film, they were saying how few there are. And I probably didn't even realize myself some of those subspecies. And so then with AZA as well, they're ongoing with the SAFE program, is a newer program that accredited zoos are participating in. Saving Animals from Extinction is the SAFE program. So with that managed population, and depending on how many are in captive settings and how great the need is for breeding, those recommendations then come down to us, and it's every year, every 2 years sometimes, that we get those recs. And also depends on your space and how you move animals, and are you building new spaces and so forth, because again, we want to keep them, we tend to keep our animals at Rolling Hills Zoo throughout their entire lives, and are committed to the animals in our care. But if you take a look at AZA, it'll also show you some of these programs online as well, and you can learn a little bit more about captive populations. Brooke? Let me do it for you.
Yes, please. So I went to Uganda 2 years ago to work with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and to basically study them in the wild. But our main purpose was to attach GPS collars onto their ossicones so we could get that kind of data that they were talking about. So we have this research, but you saw how far apart she even published all those books. There still aren't that many books or papers on giraffe. So all this knowledge, it's something that we need. So it would give us, who are they spending time with? Where are they spending their time? Because in Uganda, the giraffes are only in the national parks. Well, it's important to see how often are they venturing out of the national parks? Are they going to be safe? What can we do, to keep them safe outside of the national parks, that sort of thing. If you want to hit again, I'm not sure.
When you're talking about being safe, what does that mean? Safe from predators that are going to kill them for some meat or something? Or?
So predators would be an important thing to know, how many are being eaten by predators, but mostly it's from human conflict. So you have a lot of the farming using the land, a lot of human conflict with wars going on. You have the DRC and everything. There's just a lot of conflict with humans. So that can impact the giraffe population quite a bit. And as you saw, what they were using for bushmeat is the giraffes. You do have to feed hungry people, but you also have, ivory. Obviously, we know rhinos, elephants get poached for that stuff. Well, what now is happening, and there's a big demand in the U.S., is giraffe bone, giraffe teeth, to replace that ivory. So now you just basically have a different demand.
Isn't there anybody in a position of power that can stop that, can put the animals in a safe place wherever they're going to have a war? Let them kill themselves wherever they are. Keep the animals away from them. It seems to me that if anybody's got a telephone and they can get it together in a truck and they can move some of these animals into safer areas.
And I would say that is what you see now if you go to Africa, and Brooke's probably the most recent one, but when I went even 20 years ago, rhinos or giraffes, the ones that are protected, are on reserves. You saw in that film where the students that live in those countries, probably, miles from, have never seen a giraffe. That was a lot of the case even 20 years ago. But again, the point is, humans come first, and it takes people just like you to communicate that, to write letters, call your congressmen, call your legislatures, tell them what's important to you. It takes you as well to spend your money wisely. Look at, palm oil, which affects other animals, the tigers, orangutans. Communicate that, support these organizations, and support local zoos.
So you got to see a little bit of the capture and restraint that they did. So we did that for 20 giraffe, and let me tell you, it was an experience. Definitely filled you with adrenaline, and it's an experience I'll never forget, and I'm just hoping, the world open backs up and I can get back there and do it again. So basically what we had to do is we had to locate a giraffe that we would want to put a GPS tag in. So this was determined by male or female. We wanted a little bit more of the females and just a few males. Also a big one was ossicone size, so the horns that are on their head. Obviously you couldn't have itty bitty little nubs of one or a really big thick one. just because the GPS tag, you saw one that went all the way on the head. Now they just get drilled into that bone up there. They stay out of the way a lot more. They get damaged a lot less due to, you saw them necking. That breaks a lot of the old GPS collars off. So after locating a giraffe that we wanted to tag, the vet would shoot a dart. We didn't use helicopters like in the movie. Would shoot a dart. We would record when the dart is in. We would then, once the giraffe started having the effects of the drug, slow down, run out of our vehicles with ropes. And you can see here, what we do is we try and get in front of the giraffe. That's me over there. Get in front of the giraffe, because what we want to do is get the giraffe down safely. It is a very tall giraffe, very long necks. When they fall, they're going to fall hard. So what we want to do is have them fall safely. So we'd put the rope on their chest, cross around the back, and basically we want them to fall on their sides, not dig down face first. So you could go to the next one. Maybe. Yep. So once the giraffe is down, you can see there's a lot of people on them, and basically you just need a few people on top of the neck, because if the giraffe can't lift its neck up, he can't get up. It just needs that leverage and that oomph to get his neck up to be able to get his giant legs up underneath him and get standing up. So you can see us, they're working on the head. You can see him, like how in the video they talked, they're getting blood samples, they're getting DNA. Here, this guy's actually taking some ticks off to do some studies about endoparasites. We take temperature, we take tail samples for DNA. We are measuring, so we do how long the giraffe is, we do how long their legs are. We're taking basically any measurement, any sample that we could get in this short amount of time where we have the giraffe down. So our quickest time that we had a giraffe down was only 7 minutes. So that's really fast. And by the end of it, I mean, we got pretty good. Sometimes you have, sticky fingers that drop. I think our longest one was maybe 11 minutes. And it doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you're sitting on a giraffe, it feels a lot longer to do. So it was a lot of fun. And you can see all these people in uniform behind me. They are the UA, the Uganda Wildlife Authority. So these people are rangers in these national parks. They were with us constantly. We obviously have to have their support to do anything in the national parks. They were there driving us around, being our guide, because they are there every single day with these giraffes. They know where they like to hang out. They know the individual giraffes. They also know the safety. So if we would be walking around out in the bush, we always had a UA ranger with us to keep us safe from predators. If you want to try the next one.
Did you have guards that would keep the snakes away?
No, I never actually saw any snakes.
Oh, because, she talked about snakes.
Yeah.
And then we didn't hear any more about them, so I wasn't sure what kind of snakes they were talking about.
Yeah.
Other than venomous.
So they could have venomous snakes, or could just be rock pythons, regular snakes that aren't venomous. Both times I went to Namibia a couple years before this to work with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation too, and I got lucky. I got there right before snake season, so I didn't see any either, but I did see some spiders. You did have to be careful sometimes using the bathroom and making sure you were safe with those bugs.
Do snakes or spiders kill are they really an endangerment to any of the animals? I mean, every single animal is victim of both snakes and
So
are they often
not like an intentional one. So a snake might bite a giraffe if it steps on it, gets in it. We're not an intentional target of snakes here, but they might bite us because we get in the way.
But
or
then does it kill the snake? Does it make the snake sick, or does the the animal get over, build up a immunity to the snakes and spiders and different things like that? What are their dangers, is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
besides humans?
Well, I'm sure some animals will fall prey to like the snake venom but I don't know specifically how giraffes would be affected. I mean, I'm sure they could get a bite and it get infected that way and then succumb that way. I don't think it would be a big cause of a giraffe death, though, like very common.
I'm just trying to think of more problems we've got besides
Yeah,
the humans.
besides snakes, yep.
And yet consider all of those when you're trying to solve a problem.
So here you can see me. I am dumping water on the giraffe. So what we do, that is obviously, it's Africa. Uganda's on the equator. It's very hot. So we use evaporation to cool the giraffe down. So we have to lug these giant containers of water. And I mean, when we're running after the giraffe, we are also running with these containers to have next to the giraffe to be able to keep them cool. We're monitoring their body temperature. And if we say, hey, their respiration, hey, their body temperature is starting to increase, that will be, hey, guys, you have 30 seconds to finish what you're doing. If you do not have it done, it's over. So we do have a vet that was there constantly monitoring. We're telling them what's going on with these giraffe, and he's basically got the final say, nope, giraffe is done, we got to get him up. And we did that. Luckily, we didn't have any close calls. Everything went absolutely fantastic. And it's really funny because I've got a few videos where you get off this giraffe, they get up, they run for literally 5 steps, and then they just stand there and look like, what did you do? And then just walk away and start eating. So it's like, you wouldn't think that they would be so calm after that, but they are just, all right, I'm going to go eating. And so it was good to know that because obviously we weren't causing pain to them. If they were in pain, they would show it. So it was really exciting time, I can tell you that. So we did 20 of them.
Was that considered a herd? 20 is one herd, or would it be like 10 in one area and 7 in another, and 3, or
So we
or have to drive around to find them?
Yeah, so we went to 2 different national parks and divided them up. So we just did 20 total. So we wouldn't just do all in one herd because obviously after we start chasing them, they disperse. So we would do, 3 one day, 4 the next. We would go to a different national park and do them. So we would have different giraffes in different areas and be able to get better data that way. That makes sense. So, yeah. They actually were filming while we were there. So if you have Discovery Plus, they have a new show called Endangered. It's by Ellen DeGeneres. She's produces it. So that you can actually see what we did while we were there in Uganda. You might even be able to see this giraffe on there. But it was really cool. They highlight a bunch of different endangered or red list is what we call them, animals that are endangered of being extinct. Are there any other questions?
How long do they monitor those?
So those GPS will last hopefully about 2 years. Yeah, and then they can actually eventually fall out even. You can also, some of them will stay in, but we've had to, we got up early one morning to go and basically look through the bush to find and relocate one that had just fallen off.
Now, what are you saying is falling off?
The GPS tag that we're putting on their
okay,
Ossicone,
okay.
yeah,
I wasn't
bolts
sure
can
if it
fall
was
off
teeth
or
of those things is
yeah.
missed that one word.
Yeah. And it's really interesting and fun. I mean, all these giraffes out there, obviously they're in national parks. They all have names. They've been identified. So we go out there, take pictures, go back. There are new programs now that actually let you do it based on spot patterns on the computer. Well, back when I went to Namibia, we had to go through pictures and then have a book of pictures of 100 some giraffes and go through giraffe after giraffe to find that single spot pattern that stood out to us. Be like, oh yeah, this is Leroy right here. We found him again. And so you can note GPS tags, where he is, who has he been with, and look at the data that way. So it was really cool. We actually found a female giraffe who had a calf, and she was at least 24 years old. Wow. So that was really cool. Yeah, that you got to see, and you get to, hey, this giraffe is this old and still having calves. It's just all new data.
Do any of them recognize their name? Are they tame enough to say, Dolly is that when people work with her enough to be able to see how the animals, because I know a lot of animals, domestic and wild, have the ability to recognize sounds and information and people that they're familiar with. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't know.
In captivity, yes. I would say yes. Probably in that situation, no. But yes, animals that keepers work with every day, they know the keepers that work with them, the familiar faces that come around. And I would say yes, if we call the giraffe name, they recognize that. And then kind of depends on if they've seen you enough. Like Brooke here, of course, they recognize her probably coming from the distance, hear her vehicle coming, know the minute she walks in the door. And then especially our new calf, Cory, he is still getting used to a lot of new faces. Since we had COVID last year, we didn't have a lot of people in the barn. So he's a little more standoffish, but as well his mother is too, just by personality. So he's starting to now get a little more comfortable with new people. A little late to the game, but he's just because we were closed, the barn was closed itself. But they definitely recognize people that work with them.
With so much video camera work on all of the different species of animals, I'm just I'm not like 80 years old now. So I have watched animals through my whole life and been involved in watching movies and, all kinds of things, and even been involved in some of the footage of it. But what I'm saying is it's just really nice to see that I think all animals seem to be getting smarter, more sentient, more conscious of who they are and what they are and where their place is in the world. As it gets more familiar with us and we get more familiar with them. And then we now have the film footage to show, how they treat their newborn, and how they, especially monkeys and things like that, the ones that are probably more recorded. But I'm interested in every single species and them, since there's so little known about them, it's really, to me, very interesting, and it's open for anything to happen.
Yeah, and they're really cool animals. I mean, I might be biased, but I think giraffes are absolutely amazing. You look at them and you're just like, you're a real animal, but then you get to see them and they have such unique personalities. All of our giraffes at the zoo have such unique personalities, and when you think about it in the wild, you do think Africa giraffe, but there are less giraffe than elephants, and everyone knows that elephants are in need of protection. But you have this iconic animal that needs more protection, and the more research we can do, the more talking we can do about giraffes. I mean, you can get me started and I won't stop talking about giraffes, is what we really need to do to help save these guys.
So what will happen to Cory as he ages?
So it just depends. Like right now we don't have a bull because our male did pass away last year. So he could stay at the zoo. Or his genetics might be very valuable. I know his mother is. And BT, our male, also wasn't represented very well in captive population in zoos. So he's likely he might be recommended to breed elsewhere, or possibly we move females out and bring some new ones in for him. Kind of just depends on where everything falls. And in other zoos in the United States, have there been more births or deaths as well? And that all just kind of shuffles the deck a bit to see who has moved up in being valuable in the genetics to keep that population pure. So we don't know yet. We've got at least another 1.5 years with them, at least.
What's the purpose of the ossicones in nature?
You want to answer that, or you want me to?
I mean, I think like there could be possible different
Theories, yeah.
theories. Yeah. So some theories believe it's for eating. It helps them get through the leaves. I don't know if you could see some of those on the what they call acacia. They are very large thorns. We went through more than 4 tires in just a single day because of these thorns. They will puncture your tires. Helps move their branches away. There's other theories on what they're used for or why they developed them.
Any other questions at this point?
Well, I certainly want to thank all of you for all of the work that you do out there. I know you love the work, and that makes it exciting too. But the very fact that you're doing something so unusual, it makes it exciting. And then you can bring that to the children every time they come out and ask you a question. It's must be very fun.
I would say yes, we all enjoy it very much. So we hope you all come out and visit very soon to see our giraffes and see Cory out in the yard with his mother, especially while he's still small, 10 foot, but still small for a giraffe. Yeah.
And I think a bigger point to the giraffes disappearing, lions disappearing, elephants disappearing, it's a factor of habitat loss. It's constant habitat loss because of human beings. We have to live. I think something that's not pointed out enough, in 1940, there was 2.4 billion people in the world. Just 80 years later today, there's almost 8 billion people in the world. So we've increased by like 6 billion people, if my math's right, in 80 years' time, when there was thousands and thousands of years where the population didn't increase by even 1 billion. So we're really rapidly taking over the world, and our thinking in preserving wildlife and conserving wildlife is not catching up quick enough. I like to think on the positive side, that means there's 6 billion more people that we can get to care, but the reality is the world's a changing place. All the information in the world's right here, right? So if you want to know everything about giraffes there is to know, you can probably get on your phone and find out the published data, but to go to Africa and experience a giraffe really changes your perception. And I think, we have access to the whole world now through airplanes and things, but most people don't get too far from home. So places like the Rolling Hills Zoo, you can come out, you can get that close look at a giraffe, you can maybe feed that giraffe, you can feel his breath near your face, because we still keep a little distance there. But it's a live, living, real animal. But as Brooke alluded to, you can get that appreciation here, right here in Kansas. But when you go to Africa and you see that, my goodness, that is a real animal that has siblings, and they're finding out that they have friends, through there, and but their home's disappearing. So you almost have to go there to really, truly appreciate what they are. And, those sparks are started at the zoo. So we really encourage you all to come out. Giraffes are fantastic. And there's a lot of other animals, too, that really can catch your interest. You can see them, how they move, and experience them, and really spark that interest to where we can, we potentially can make that difference. And culture is starting to move that direction a little bit, where people are realizing that, hey, there's more to life than what we do every day. National Geographic photographer Joel Sartori says it really well, that by protecting the biodiversity in the world, we ultimately protect ourselves. And I think that sentiment is starting to gain some steam, and hopefully will snowball into the future.
Does anybody give talks to children and families that kind of come out there?
Sure.
And I'm thinking putting a different spin on something, because I'm a firm believer that we have too many children that are having children.
Yeah.
And I think that we're having way too many children around the world. And as you can see, the short length of time, we had this massive population just you know, burst, and it messed up everything in the ecosystem on the entire planet. So my thought is to just please, you know, take where we are in the various subjects and take it, let's take it another step. What if we do this? What if we decide to have fewer children? What if we decide to, you know, protect our environment better? Because I can tell you, at my age now, I've been here long enough since, you know, World War II, to see so many changes around the entire planet. And I've traveled much of the planet too, by the way. And seeing jungles and, I mean, things that have totally changed even in the time since I've been traveling, which I started out traveling at about, I think it was about age 20. I was a singer and I started just traveling around to nightclubs and stuff. And there have been so many changes, and it's like most of the people are unconscious about what's been going on and how much they have personally affected the entire planet. So I'm just saying, if you're talking about animals, maybe you say, and by the way, do you know how much you affect?
Yeah.
You know, every child that you decide to have is
Sure.
taking away from every other creature on the planet.
Well, the first part of your question, we have an education department dedicated to education at the zoo, but I think everyone who works at the zoo would consider themselves an educator in some way. And to the second part of what you were saying, and to what I'm more and more hopeful for, is that culture overall is starting to change a little bit. And a good indicator of that is when everyone was locked down on COVID, you'd expect more children to be born right now. But the statistics coming back actually is there's less children being born than there has been in the past 5 or 6 years.
I haven't seen that statistic.
So there maybe is a cultural
I'm glad
change.
to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it's our education system has gone down too. When I had an English class, you know, in grade school and in high school, and then I hear what the kids are saying on television now, and I mean on their phones, and I mean the English is so bad and they're putting themselves first. It's like me and Joe, or me and Mom, or me and, you know, me comes first. And that's a philosophy thing too, I think that's a problem right now.
Yeah.
Which then spreads out into other things, so.
So
I
what's
know,
being
I'm talking too much.
Hey, do we have any questions?
I do have a question. The giraffes are being killed by the bush people because they're hungry. What's being done to help solve that issue?
Well, some of it is the education, you know, educate what we can do. Also, we just need more, I think, programs to help feed these people. You know, like she said, you can't fault them for being hungry and trying to feed their families.
Exactly.
So a lot of it, I think, just comes down to resources and trying to do what we can do to help them too. I mean,
So I assume there are programs in Africa that are working on this problem, right?
Yes, there are, and you could probably, like he was saying, Google a lot of this too, but a lot of the outreach that are conservation efforts do have ties to community, because without the community, you're not going to save the animal. And so there are, you know, you can buy blankets or sometimes beadwork or some kind of those items that help fund that and show people, as well as tourism, just like he was saying, if you go and visit. Tourism is a big part of that, and many communities throughout Africa, Kenya, and especially, if you go there, they know the people coming to visit keep the animals safe, so that money comes in through tourism. But also just donating. There's so many organizations that we also support, like the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, that put money in the hands on the ground in those communities. So our animals being those representatives, so you can make those connections and then spend your money wisely, like we had mentioned. That's really helps getting those communities supported. because in the end, that is, you have to take care of the community first.
Is Anne still alive? And I guess she's still alive?
I'm not, I believe so, yes.
I wasn't sure.
But I don't know 100% at this, today, but yes, I believe so.
Awesome. It was very informative and very entertaining, and I enjoyed it immensely. So thank
Yeah,
you.
that was there was many moments I was like, oh.
I mean,
Yeah.
like when she was describing seeing her first wild giraffe, I was like taken back to when
Right.
I did it, and it was like, yeah, that's a giraffe. Like, and then the butterflies that you feel, and it's funny because that same feeling, it was the same after the 20th giraffe that I saw in the wild. It was always still so exciting to see it. So.
Okay, well, let's give a big thank you to Ryan, Brenda, and Brooke. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
please come back for our next Science on Screen. Hope to see you soon.